Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jamie McDonald here, back with Mike Beaning for episode 3 of Mirrorless Minutes. This week, big news, Photokina is going on over in Germany, and as you can guess, this show is probably going to be doing a lot of talking about Olympus's announcements. If Mike wants to touch on anything from Panasonic, he's more than welcome to. I haven't followed any of the announcements from them, to be honest with you. Pretty much just Olympus for me. But before we do that, I'm going to start off with the typical image share type deal. I took a few photos last weekend, and I shot a video that just went over just the basics of macro photography using my mirrorless cameras. I was shooting with the OMD EM1, and I discussed about things about manual focus and just different settings for your camera and using off-camera lighting and things like that to shoot macro. And I'll share a few of the images that were taken from that video, and then in the show notes I'll link you to that video as well if you're interested in just watching a little tutorial on some basic macro photography. So I will start the screen share here, and there we go. Okay, so are you seeing that, Mike?
Yes.
All right, good deal.
See that.
So what we're seeing here are, if you're familiar with any climbing plants like poison ivy or creeping myrtle, they grip onto the tree using these little, I like to say they look like gecko's toes. As I was walking through the woods doing this little video, I was looking for things that people probably don't normally notice or pay attention to, and this was one of those things that just kind of popped out to me. It was on a dead elm tree that had no bark on it, so it was a really light colored wood, kind of a gray color, and I noticed these bright magenta grippers gripping into the tree. So this was shot with the 60mm f2.8 macro on the EM1, and it was lit with a single Olympus FL600R flash that was triggered wirelessly via the hot shoe mounted flash on the EM1. And again, that was just something that I discussed on the video, just to show you how to light a macro if you don't have enough available light, which in most cases, if you're shooting macro and you're stopped down to like f13 or greater, available light is something that you really don't have much of. The next shot is of moss, and this was taken using the microscope mode. I know most people have probably never seen moss this way before. Moss just usually looks like a flat, soft, fuzzy carpet, but when you get in close, it actually looks pretty interesting. Again, this was with the microscope mode on the TG3, and the lens was actually laying flat down on the ground and illuminated with, there's an accessory for the tough line of cameras for the TG1, 2, and 3. It's called a light guide. It's kind of like a ring light basically, that is illuminated using the LED light on the camera. And what this does is it allows you to actually put the camera right on top of your subject and fully illuminate it completely around the circumference of the lens. So it gives you this really even lighting, I guess. Again, another crazy macro with the TG3, and the same with this one, another one from the TG3. And these are all straight out of camera, so I haven't doctored these up at all. That's what I love about macro, some of the colors you find in these insects. These are one of those little leaf hopper bugs, and he's actually sitting on my pinky finger, pardon the gross finger hairs, but and so that was just kind of a few examples of what I shot for that video. But what I really wanted to share tonight were the photos that I shot this evening of my two kids, and these were shot with the EM1, and I was using the version 2.0 firmware when I did this, which now has these totally cool vintage art filters. And I just kind of want to mention that I think it's funny that they're called vintage art filters because it's such a popular trend right now. It's almost like current art filters because this style or this look is so popular right now. These are straight out of camera too, so this is right from the EM1 right onto my computer. And this is another one of the art filters. There are actually 3 vintage art filters, and like most of the other art filters, you've got access to I guess sub styles within each one. So this one and the one above it, and actually all of them, because I like the way that it looks, you get a pinhole, so it's just a really heavy vignetting around it. So I turn on that little sub feature in the filter. Again, another one straight out of camera. This one right here, this one right here, and this one right here are all three of the different art filters. So they each give, you know, a completely different look. They all have that faded, I guess, vintage look to them. And then the one that was kind of interesting to use is there's a new thing which basically gives you selective color. And the way that it pulls it off in camera is totally cool. So you're looking through your viewfinder, and when you enable this the selective color, you get a color wheel that shows up on screen. And when you do that, you just dial your rear control wheel on your EM1, and a selector point on that color wheel rotates around the color wheel, going from yellow to green to blue to red to magenta. And as you go cycling through those different colors, you see those colors being the only color represented on in your viewfinder in your camera. So that's how you end up getting just a single blue, or just single greens or reds, or even nuances in between, because you do have this range in between each color that is available. It's just kind of cool. I'm not a huge fan of selective color, but again, you know, I wasn't a fan of a lot of art filters in the beginning either, so I could see myself at some point probably starting to use it more and more. Just again, with the art filters, it's one of those things where they're in the camera, and if you just start kind of playing with them a little bit here and there, the next thing you know, you're using them more and more, and then you're actually finding yourself going out and looking at a shot and saying, man, you know what, vintage art filter number 2 would totally work in this setting, and then you're on it and you're just doing it that way. So
yeah, that's really the best way to do it. Is you just got to play with those things. Like you said, go out, play with them, say, oh, this looks good, this looks bad, and then, you know, when next time you're out on the street and you're shooting, you know, with the group, that's when you say, oh, here it is. This is where we got to do it. You know, and I think that those are sharp, really good. So I'm not sharing pictures today, but so we'll just that's all right. We'll we got a lot to talk about, I know, with firmware and that, and hopefully for those of you that have the Olympus and the EM1, you're able to go ahead and do that update. I know I've helped a couple of people get it going today, and you got to wait. You got to wait till it says okay on that thing. You don't want to be disconnected. I don't know. Have you ever worked with anybody, Jamie, that disconnected?
I have not had to work with anybody who has gone through the process of potentially bricking a camera. Firmware updates are scary, so make sure you follow the directions to a T. And like Mike said, right on the back of your screen on your EM1, there will be huge block letters that say OK. Right. That means it's okay to disconnect and turn off the camera. Do not do it anytime before that, because you do run the risk of completely bricking your camera.
Yeah, I think that would be bad. That would really, I'm sure, take you off down the road. But the other thing that I found out on that firmware, I know the 60 millimeter had a firmware upgrade. I'm not sure exactly what it did. I'm sure it has to do with the focus peaking or something in that sense. They're smoother. Do you know exactly what it did?
The firmware notes they were really vague. It said it is an improvement in the manual focus, and I did not update it, but I did read notes from several people who have gone through that process. Yeah. And I think from the way it sounds, from their opinions of it, it sounds like you spend a little less time cranking through the focus ring to move, because it can be a long process. When I was doing that macro video and I had the 60 millimeter on, I found there were several times where I was turning and turning and turning, and thought, holy cow, am I going the right way? Because it's taken a little long to get to where I need to be.
That's exactly it then. I did my update, and when I was checking the focus peaking, the new focus peaking on the firmware, I noticed how good it was, but I was able to catch that focus a lot quicker. Okay. So then that's it. That's it. Good. So it's working, which is good. You know, I found out too there was an update on the 45, the 1.8.
I did not know. Oh, yeah. You noticed that you weren't current on yours?
You got it. Yeah, well, I went through that whole list of lenses, and I said, I'm going to check every lens I have to make sure. Yep. And sure enough, that 45-1.8 had an update. I'm not sure what that was, but I updated it. You know, I really couldn't tell you. I put it on, I couldn't tell any difference.
Now, before we go any further with it, just if anybody's got any questions about doing any of these updates, how to go about it, like what you're supposed to use in order to do it, or the steps you need to take, or what you need to be cautious of or aware of when you're doing it, just feel free to get a hold of us through the comment section on the YouTube video. You know, when this is done, when the the cameras are done rolling, I guess.
Right.
And Mike or I or both of us will probably get back to you really quickly to help you out, because I don't want anybody to get upset because something happened that they weren't aware of or prepared for and potentially caused a problem with their camera. So just want to throw that out there, little
Yeah,
offer of
definitely.
assistance.
Definitely, and there's and there if you are just into the Micro Four Thirds, there's a Facebook page, a Micro Four Thirds enthusiast page. It's a closed group. I left it closed. Now people keep asking to get in. It's growing, but it's like MFT enthusiasts, and you know what? Ask to get in that thing, and the reason it's closed is because otherwise it's gonna be full of spammers when you put them as a public group. But we've been able to keep that really good, and I think there's a lot of great information shared back and forth on these pages, either through Facebook or right in Mirrorless Minutes. Do it on YouTube, and then we'll have a log of it at least.
I think you'll find that Mike is active in all of those.
Yeah.
Very active. So it blows my mind. I will refresh a page, and I'm like, wow, okay, so Mike has posted like 5 times since the last refresh.
Yeah, so, these last couple of days have been a little nuts with, oh, geez, something else came out. You're kidding me, something else. On top of all this, I mean, we didn't even, I think originally we might have talked about it, and we didn't spend really a lot of time in our notes, but, the new iPhone was announced, and it's obviously if you're able to pre-order it and get it in this week, hopefully mine is here Friday. We'll see. It says it's supposed to be. And but I mean, there's a lot of great camera additions to that thing. So there's just been a lot of stuff coming out, and it sounds like it's going to be a pretty interesting time too when some of the new things from Olympus hit the shelves of the stores.
Yeah. So I know you wanted to talk to everybody about the 2.0 firmware that just hit for the OMD EM1.
Yeah.
And I think rather than maybe doing the laundry list of everything that's included, because it is a pretty extensive list, maybe we'll talk about a few things that kind of stood out to us.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'll let you lead it off.
Okay.
If you let me go, I won't stop talking.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, and I'm going to say it just because I haven't been able to go out and find a building yet, but I'm excited about this Keystone compensation. Being a mainly street photographer and getting out and shooting a lot of architecture and buildings, especially Chicago, Detroit, the huge buildings. I can't wait to see that thing work. It doesn't work good in the house, from what I can tell. That's all I've been able to look at it. But I do think that's going to help, and it does make it the keystoning corrections. It makes it into a JPEG, and I think if you want to adjust your RAW, you do that in your Lightroom. You can get that same thing out of the Lightroom effects there. But that's going to be a pretty good one, and I'll mention one more, and I'll let you take a couple or talk about some. And that's it's not out yet, but that tethered shooting. Yeah. Tethered shooting is going to be a lot of fun. In fact, if you haven't seen the video yet, there's what was it, about a 3-minute video, Jamie, that goes through, maybe just talks about what it'll do. I think it's more cartoon-like, but there's a video that shows. We'll put the link in the thing, but there's a video that shows how that tethered shooting is going to work. Boy, for portrait photographers, I mean, you're really talking on the pro side here. I had all that with Nikon. It was very nice to do portraits with that, and this one, from what I can tell, is going to be way better than what Nikon offered, because you can adjust every single thing right on screen. Yeah. Take a picture from on screen. That's an amazing feat right there. So you're talking about getting it right in camera. That's going to be perfect.
Exactly.
And then if you're in any kind of food photography or just product photography, that's going to be fantastic as well, because that's how you shoot that stuff. It's hard to always shoot it, and I like that layover feature. What was it called? I can't remember what the heck the thing was called. They showed the Olympus camera where it would go exactly in the same spot every time.
Yeah, so basically it would almost work the way like the dual exposure works in camera. Right. You kind of get a ghosted image of your previous frame on there, and then it allows you to, like, for product photography is really where it's going to help. Or I don't know, maybe even with portrait work, if you have people where you want them lined up in the right spot, but you take a picture of object A, and then you want to put object B in there, you can have a ghosted image of object A sitting there, and it'll allow you to line your next object in exactly the same spot. So if you're doing catalog work, all your
Exactly.
products are exactly the same shot.
Right,
It's
right,
pretty
and
cool.
they're sitting on the whether they're sitting on the same pedestal or whatever. One's not a little bit inch to the left or inch to the right. Yeah, that's pro features. That's exactly what that is. I mean,
Right.
that's EM1 is really, boy, they've listened.
Yeah.
I think they've really gone after it.
So we've
So
got a
go.
question from the audience here. They're asking when the tethering is expected to ship. We're
Yep.
waiting on the companion app to come out for that, and I don't
Right.
have a hard date that I can give anybody right now. But it is a separate application that's going to be run. It's Olympus's own app.
Right.
So if I can find out within the next day, I'll put it in the notes for you so that you'll see it. So I'm sorry I don't have like a hard date for you though.
Yeah, that you download that right onto your laptop or desktop, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And it'll be Mac or Windows obviously. And
Right.
in the video they say that it'll allow for integration into Lightroom or what is it Capture One? Is that the
Yeah,
other one?
yeah, phase one or
Yeah.
capture one, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and I'm assuming that the way that the integration is going to work is in Lightroom you can set up Lightroom so that you have a folder that is watched. So what
Hmm.
happens is you snap the photo. It's in the Olympus app. It's going to save it into this watched folder, and as soon as the image hits that folder, the Lightroom catalog updates and shows that image appear in your screen. So it'll be a pretty seamless thing. I mean, I've done that
Yeah.
before just to test it out to see how it works using an iFi card, which is not the same as this is going to be. This is so much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, for product shooters and portrait photographers, yeah. This was probably one of the only things holding Olympus back from being considered, I think, for a lot of portrait people.
Right. Exactly. I think so too. All right. Well, you want to talk about live composite? Because we've got it now. I shouldn't
Live
even said that.
composite.
Do I want to?
I love live composite. So for people who aren't familiar with it, I think I might have discussed it before on a previous show. Live composite is something that's been available in the OMD EM10, and with this new firmware update, it is now moved over into the EM1. And live composite allows you to it's perfect for nighttime photography, for cityscapes and fireworks, things of that nature. Basically allows you, and I'm just going to give you a really abbreviated explanation. You take your initial photo, that is your base exposure, your background exposure, and then each additional exposure that you take, the camera takes automatically at an interval that you set. Each exposure, it only overlays things that have changed from that base image that are light things. So again, the example I like to use is cars going down the highway. If you take your initial shot and there are no cars on the road, and during the next exposure a car drives by, the only thing that's going to get added to that base exposure is that car's lights as it drives by. So what this allows is if you're doing a city scene at night, if you did a long exposure to try to achieve this look, eventually the lights on the buildings and the street lights and the moon or what have you would end up blowing out and overexposing. With live composite, those things, those city lights and the moon and street lights and building lights are all your base exposure. Those never change from one shot to the next. They never get added to. Only new things to the scene, like the cars driving by, get added. So it's it's the way to shoot fireworks, and it's the way to shoot nighttime city scenes, if you ask me. And now the
Yeah.
EM1 has that.
And that star trails, if you shoot
Oh
star
yes,
trails, and it would take, I mean, it would take a lot of work in Photoshop to pull that off on those kind of shots. And you
and
could do it, obviously.
it's done in camera now for you.
Right, it's done in camera. So talk about saving time. And, I'd say go out, if you've updated it, go out and check it out. I mean, get a clear night, take your base exposure of your house with your lights on, and then just let it rip. Let it sit out there, for an hour and just check out the star trails that you'll get.
Yeah,
You know,
incredibly
really,
cool.
really sharp. Yep. Let's see, what else? Did you try those photo story things? I haven't tried it yet.
I haven't tried that yet,
Yeah.
but again, we kind of hit on a couple of these things when I talked about the EPL7.
Hmm.
They're things that are now available in the EM1, and with the story mode is basically allows you to capture a story with individual frames that are put into these little boxes, and there are different configurations that you can use. And the way it used to work is you'd have to sit there, take a photo, it fills one box, and then you take a photo, it fills another box. But you had to do it all right then and there. Now with the new firmware, it's set up so that I could take that initial exposure now, and I could come back to it tonight or tomorrow or a week from now, and I could finish that story out over a longer period of time, which it opens up the doors for, again, a lot more opportunities for different ideas to tell a story over time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess another one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about, and it's not something that somebody new to mirrorless would necessarily see, but somebody who's been in it from day one like I have, is the EVF, the electronic viewfinder in the EM1, has had a refresh. The refresh rate on the screen has been decreased. It's a faster refresh rate. And why that is so important is because for a lot of people that are transitioning from a DSLR, where you're actually looking through an optical viewfinder, which is routing, your eyeball through the lens, you're seeing real world, real time. There's no delay. It's the real world. When you're looking through an electronic viewfinder, you're looking at a screen. So what happens is what comes through the lens needs to get processed and then routed to that little screen. And just because of the laws of physics, and there's a delay there, it's got to run through. It's got to run through a processor. It's got to be pumped up to a screen, which has to display it. And depending on how fast the refresh rate is on the screen, there can be a lag, and that's a big turnoff for a lot of people that are getting into mirrorless. They start looking through a viewfinder and they're saying, "Man, it's not the same as my DSLR. There's a little bit of a lag. I can detect a difference." And if you use them for just a little while, it's something that you really get used to, and it doesn't become an issue after a little given period of time. But now with the EVF refresh rate cranked up a notch even more, it's even less of an issue. I'm trying to find some people who have never looked through one that I can have them look through it and kind of gauge what kind of an emotional feedback I get, that they have with the camera. To me, that's like the ultimate test. You can't test me on it because I've been using them forever, and I can't test you because you're a mirrorless guy. It's what you know now. But I think this will definitely help sell more cameras. It's, again, one of those things that probably won't get a lot of press, but it's something that should be mentioned, is that things like that make a difference.
Oh, it really does. I mean, shooting Nikon that whole time and then switching over to it, I definitely came to notice it when I moved into like the EM5.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I have to you got to adjust your shooting.
You sure do, yeah.
And obviously the EM1, when that came out, it improved it itself, but now this firmware has jumped it even that much. It looks, I don't even really notice it anymore.
Exactly.
To tell the truth. So I think that's how good it actually is.
Definitely. And on the kind of piggybacking on the whole refresh rate, one of the complaints that people had about some of the features on these cameras is that the refresh rate got really sluggish and slow when you were using art filters, and those got a boost to me, a significant boost in speed. I haven't really heard a lot of feedback from people. It's funny how people, when there's something to complain about, you hear them. They're loud and they're vocal, but then when the issues get resolved, they just kind of go quiet, and nobody says much. I haven't heard anybody say, "Man, that was great, thanks." But focus peaking was the big thing. A lot of people like to use focus peaking. I am like a focus peaking junkie for multiple reasons. For one, I love pulling this out and doing this. This is an old lens. This lens is like as old as me, and I'm an old fart, and I love using it on this camera. And the only way that I could reliably use it on this camera is with focus peaking or using magnify, which is another perk of mirrorless. You don't get that with a DSLR. But for me, it's faster to just flip on focus peaking, and I can dial in my my focus nice and quick that way. But before, with focus peaking, it was slow and it was sluggish, and it looked like stuttery, and you knew you were looking through an electronic viewfinder. It was like you were looking at a crappy television station that just couldn't keep up with, they didn't have enough bandwidth. But now it's so fast. I'm glad you pointed it out earlier before the show. You said, "Hey, did you notice how much faster it is?" And I'm thinking,
yeah, it's really is something clean and clear, and it's like it's snappy. It snaps right to the edges, and that's what you want. As soon as you see that snap to the edge of what you're trying to focus on, it's boom, and it's there. I know this weekend I had a group out on the riverfront, and I showed a couple of people how to use that focus peaking even in street shooting, and they were DSLR owners, and they're like, "Oh man." So I had to give him crap the rest of the time. We got
Right.
a mirrorless camera. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is sharp, and that was before it got updated.
Yeah. Were there any other features in the firmware that stood out to you?
Nothing. I will tell you the one thing that might revert a little bit to the macro is that magnification now. I guess it's 3 times higher resolution in the live view, magnified live view. It says 3 times added to the high resolution of magnified live view. So I haven't checked it yet, but that sounds like certainly for anything macro, that's definitely going to help. Other than that, I don't think there is. I know I don't use these that much. That HDR1 and HDR2 setting. If I'm
Right.
going to do HDR, I'm probably going to do it myself. But
Yeah.
I know that one that now has gone all the way to plus and minus 3, which is great. So you can really grab a lot of area there. Um, but yeah, other than that, not too much. But a couple other announcements was we've got a silver now. Is that what it's called? A silver EM1.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that looks pretty sharp. I don't know if I'll run out and get it. I'm pretty happy with what I have.
Yeah.
but it does look nice. And I heard though that is that true that they're going to be reducing that like the other EM1 in price?
I just saw today
Yeah.
that it's already $100 cheaper.
It is $100 cheaper. Okay. Yeah, to match up the black one, right?
Yep. So
Yeah.
we have another question.
Okay, great.
It's funny that this question comes up because it was something that you asked me about just prior to going
Yeah.
live on the show, and somebody wanted to know
Oh, jeez.
what is the red button. So the red button it's called an SLR dot, and I've got it on Amazon, and I think Giulio Ciorio is the guy that I saw have them first. It's basically like a little squishy silicone button that has an adhesive back on it, and you put it on your shutter button. And the reason I did that is it's not like the button is hard to find on the EM1, but it's sure the heck not hard to find now at all because it stands out and it's got these little nubs on it. But I think the biggest thing for me that I like about it is the fact that now it's a hair trigger shutter. I've told Mike that I've handed my camera to people who were asking about it, and I said, well, check it out, see what you think. And as they're pulling the camera up to their eye, click, 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 and they're like, wow, okay, so it's pretty sensitive.
Mhm.
So that's what I have it on there for, because I find I'm a little less shaky if I don't have to hardly push the button in order to trigger it. So that's an SLR dot, and if you're interested, I could put a link to it in the show notes. They're cheap; they're like $7, and you get a pair of them. So I've got one on my EP5 too.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I didn't know what the heck that thing was. It's like the panic button or something.
it's my faux
Yeah. Yeah,
the dots
exactly.
in the wrong spot, and
Yep. Yep. So, well, you want to talk about the lens?
let's talk about the lens. That's
All
what you
right.
got.
The 40 to 150. It is true. It is alive and it's out there, and it's yeah, at least in this place or on this in this camera bag, it is on pre-order. So I'm happy about that. Been saving a lot, knowing that it was coming, and got that thing on pre-order. So it's pretty exciting to. Hopefully that comes out sooner than later. It sounds like November timeframe.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And that will a couple people have been able to hold on to it. I saw it today. I think I might have put one on the Micro enthusiast page, but it doesn't sound like a lot of people yet have it to
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
Um,
Another person in the Trailblazer program with me, Alex McClure.
yeah.
I think he's actually got it at his house right now if he didn't ship it back yet. So he's had it sitting on it for a little while, that with the teleconverter. So been picking his brain about his first impressions of it.
Yeah, it really does look like, from what we've heard, and I know Jamie's got a little bit more perspective on it, shooting some, not just old Olympus, not 4/3 even, but just old Olympus lenses, how well constructed and well made they were, and a lot of people are, sort of comparing it to that,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yep.
You know,
A lot of the comparisons I've heard are comparing it to the super high grade lenses, which for people who've moved, I don't know how many people listening to the show are prior Olympus DSLR users or not, but the 35 to 100 and the 150 millimeter prime, those are two lenses that it's compared to a lot because those two lenses are just ridiculously incredible lenses. So it lives up to those standards, and it's pretty high standards for anybody who's used those lenses. Construction is solid, and it's got a few cool features to it.
Yeah, you know what? If it matches the 12 to the 12 to 40, the Pro lens that's out, and I know it's going to. I mean, obviously that's the way they made it. That thing is rock solid.
Alex told me that it is sharper than the 12 to 40
Really?
with
Yeah,
the teleconverter on.
yeah. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, being rock solid obviously is going to help to get it out into the elements, but that the lens hood, which it comes with.
Yes, correct.
So that's important to notice for a lot of Olympus users. I know a lot of people sometimes complain about that.
Right.
It's got to buy a lens hood. But the 2 Pro lenses now will come with lens hoods.
Yes.
And if you break that first one, you can get another one too. And notice you can buy one.
Yeah. Yeah. The anything in the Pro line will come with a lens hood.
Yeah.
Right
yeah,
now,
that's
2 lenses in that category.
Right, and that thing is how it like comes on down, slides down, and then locks in. I mean, that's going to be nice instead of always whipping it around, turning it, moving it in another direction. So excited to see that thing out, and looks like there'll be some more in 2015 too.
Yeah.
At least on the roadmap.
So what Mike was talking about with the lens hood is that you don't really ever have to remove it from the body if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've got it engaged on the front of the lens, you can actually slide it right back down along the body of the lens, and it will sit right back there over the body. And then when it's time to use it, you slide it out, and it locks into place. And when I say it locks into place, it locks in with enough strength to where you can flip the camera up and just rest it on the lens hood, and it will support that weight. So again, you never have to take the hood off of the lens. You really no need to.
Yeah, when you're shooting, you know, I mean, I'll be using that, I know, for a lot of sports this winter.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're shooting with 2 cameras going at once, that's what you're usually doing anyways, is you're laying it up on your lens hood like that. So that is good. You know, there were a lot of announcements this week for sure. I know we're going to probably concentrate more on Olympus ones, but, you know, keep tuning in to a lot of Photokina stuff. I will tell you there's one Panasonic that's interesting me. And that is this GM5. I haven't seen how small it is, but all I can tell you is everybody talks about how tiny this thing is, and that's got that one thing that I really like about it. It's got this silent mode, this electronic curtain mode. So if you're doing some street shooting, and you didn't want to get into the whole Fuji system because Fuji runs with that silent mode, you know, you could still stick with your micro four thirds lenses and get that silent mode out of that, but who knows? I'm sure someday Olympus is going to hit with that silent mode too.
So how does the silent mode work? Because I've never used a camera that has that feature. Basically, and again, that's one of those things that I guess I should ask the people at the, you know, in the know. Why? I guess I never fully understood why there was a shutter actuation even happening on a mirrorless camera.
I guess it's the curtain. The curtain makes the curtain noise right now on our normal cameras with the beep. Take the beep out of the whole equation. Yeah, the beep comes out, but I do know there's still that noise, that curtain noise is what they call it. So it's a manual curtain. This is an electronic curtain. So it does everything electronically. When you do not know anyone's taking pictures. When I've watched people shoot with Fujis and in that silent mode, and you have no idea. I mean, you could be on a quiet bus, you could be in a crowd of people. You know, if you're a street shooter, that's a nice thing because people can still hear it. Not as much as of course as a DSLR going off, but you definitely can hear it in a very quiet room. You'll still hear an Olympus.
Yeah.
But you know, the GM5 looks pretty sharp. I just don't know how it being so tiny, it may be too tiny. That's the only problem. Is I don't think you'll be putting the 40 to 150 on it.
Good candidate for body cap lenses.
That's exactly right. That's what I'm thinking too. So I do know Fuji released 2 new ones. I know one of them is the 100T, and I'm not sure the other one this past week. But they also have a couple. We'll have to get some Fuji shooters on here, talk about some mirrorless stuff.
I've
with
got
those
somebody lined
guys.
up for that.
All right, good.
And then we had a question too regarding the teleconverter with the 40 to 150, the new teleconverter.
Yeah.
The teleconverter is a 1.4,
Hmm.
and it is a single stop of light loss. So to answer that question,
Right. And it takes you out to what, 420,
correct.
420,
Yep, 420.
right?
Yep.
So I mean that's pretty powerful for
Yes, it
a
is.
6-inch lens.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
I guess to mention too, for those who don't know, the teleconverter is only going to work currently with the 40 to 150, and then next year when the 300 millimeter f4 comes out, it will work with that lens as well. But currently, those are the only two lenses out and announced that teleconverter will work with. Because of the design of that teleconverter, it has a uh, everybody calls it a protruding nub, I guess, whatever. There's a protrusion on it that actually goes inside of the lens,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure exactly why. Personally, I almost feel like that design is meant to keep the teleconverter thin, because if you look at, putting, well, I mean, this is an adapter. I mean, I know that the concept is a little different, but adapters and teleconverters tend to be a little thick, or
Right.
they can be. And this teleconverter, after seeing it on Alex's camera, he had it mounted to his camera with the 40 to 150, and I didn't know that the teleconverter was on it at first. I had to view the image full size before I realized, oh wow, he's got the teleconverter on it right now. It's pretty thin.
Yeah, that's good, and it probably even helps maybe in the weather sealing because it remains weather sealed, right, with the
Yes, it does.
teleconverter on, and that's the key. That's a key piece because you don't
Yeah,
want to break the weather seal. That's
right.
the whole idea of having that lens. But
Exactly.
yeah, and so that is I don't I think it's been a fairly busy week. It feels
Yeah,
like a lot still coming.
yeah.
You know.
So as far as things coming, I
Hmm.
think I mentioned it before on the show. For any viewers who live in Michigan or are close to Michigan, the annual Scott Kelby Photo Walk, I host one every year. The one I'm hosting this year is in Lansing, Michigan, which is our state capital, which conveniently is about 20 minutes from my home this year rather than the hour plus drive that it usually is for me.
Hmm.
And we've got sponsors this year. I try to always line up some sponsors to give away things. I like to be able to play Santa Claus. And this year, Olympus gave me a couple of things to give away. Uh, I've got a brand new TG3 right here in black, and I love this camera. I've always got a TG3 in my bag. And the big one that I know a lot of people keep telling me, hey, is there any way you can make sure I win this? Sorry, I can't make sure you win it, but your odds are really good if you show up. I've got an OMD EM10 to give away, and these just came
Nice.
FedEx the other day. And actually, I was pretty stoked to see that the one that came is, can't see it there, silver. So
Oh,
you'll
is
get to
it?
see what a
Okay.
silver camera looks like. It's a pretty sharp camera.
Yeah.
And my good friend at borrowlenses.com, Alex Huff, she emailed me today 2 gift certificates that I can print out and bring. And each one of those is valued at $150. So you've got a
Wow.
$150 credit to use at borrowlenses.com to rent gear. And she also asked for my mailing address, and I think she might be sending a little swag, maybe t-shirts or hats or some things like that. And I also have some Olympus goodie bags to give away too. And if it's raining, I have a whole big box of Olympus ponchos to bring, because my wife said, "Are you going to do something with those?" So I'm either looking on Pinterest for a craft idea for Olympus ponchos, or maybe I'll just give away ponchos anyway, so I don't have them in my home.
Yeah.
But that's my plug for the photo walk, and just follow me on Twitter. It's at McDonald_photo, and you'll see me tweet about it. So which
Yeah,
I
it's
live
gonna
in
be
Michigan.
good. It's gonna be good. I know. I'm gonna take my hour and a half drive to get over there, and I'll be there helping too because we'll have some of those what are they called, live drive.
Live drive kits, correct? Yes.
That'll be excellent. Get some people if you don't have a mirrorless camera and you want to check this out because you keep having people like Jamie or I bugging you. You should be doing that. Or you've been on some of my tours lately, and that's all I've talked about is how you shoot, street without that big honking thing hanging off your neck.
Yeah.
Come out there, check this thing out because you'll be able to actually use those cameras.
And there is a chance I might have a 40 to 150 there. I know we're working on trying to get it there. There are only a couple of units in the country, and right now most of them are traveling around to the big name bloggers and tech websites, and the one that I think is available to people like me in the Visionary program. It's making its rounds around the country from person to person. So trying to get the timing right so that I have it for my photo walk. So
Yeah.
show up. You might get to see I'm calling it the new little tuna.
Right. There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's going to be a good walk. Looking forward to that. It's going to be great weather, rain or shine.
Correct.
Because we'll have those cameras out there. So, all right. I think that does it for me.
That does it for me too.
All right.
So I guess everybody tune in 2 weeks from now, same time, same bat channel, whatever.
Yep. There you go.
We'll be here, and I promise you, I will not monopolize this show with Olympus talk. So I'm going to be contacting a friend of mine who is a Fuji shooter, so we can get another mirrorless perspective on the show. And again, I'm throwing the casting call out there. Get a hold of us if you're a mirrorless shooter. I don't care what brand it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those gigantic, massive Sony full-frame mirrorless cameras. I love the fact that everything mirrorless is small. Get a hold of us. We'll have you on the show. Love to talk.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I guess from Mike and Jamie in the Mitten State, you guys take care, and we'll see you 2 weeks from now. And don't forget to give us the thumbs up, subscribe, share us, tweet us, do all those social things with us. You guys take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.